How do you find motivation? How do you help others without compromising yourself? What's the key to coping with perfectionism? I have answers to these questions and more. So let's talk about better mental health. Hello and welcome. I'm Jeremy Godwin, and in this week's episode of Better Mental Health, I have answers to a whole bunch of mental health questions that you put to me on my 2 Instagram accounts a couple of weeks ago. This is actually going to be a 2-part video, and the second installment will be coming next week because there were quite a lot of questions that were submitted, and frankly, I didn't want to make a half-an-hour video. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, then do so now. Click the logo in the corner, and while you're at it, turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. So this week's video and next week's is an example of what I actually offer to my supporters on Patreon. For a small monthly amount, you can become a general supporter, and you'll be able to then help me produce the work that I do on the podcast and also here on YouTube, and more importantly, keep it ad-free. And you'll also get a shout out at the end of each podcast transcript every week. Or if you want to pay a little bit extra, you can become an official supporter where you'll receive an exclusive monthly video where I give you a look at what's coming up on both the podcast and the YouTube over the following month. And I also answer any questions that you submit to me within reason about mental health and well-being. All questions that are submitted will be answered as long as they're kind and not nasty. If that means that the video is an hour, then it's an hour. So if you like my work, become a supporter now at patreon.com/Jeremy Godwin, and you'll find the link in the episode description below. So with all of that covered, let's start this first video of 2 where I'm going to be answering the questions that you asked me on Instagram. So let's start with how to support people you care about without sacrificing yourself and while maintaining healthy boundaries. The answer to this one is actually in the question. You can only support, you cannot fix other people's problems. And I know that it's a real temptation when we care about people that we want to jump in and really help in a way that fixes the issue for them. But the reality is that to fix problems actually requires somebody to work through it themselves. There are a few episodes that I've actually done in the past that cover off on how you can do that in a really supportive way. But before I tell you what those episodes are, just really quickly, it's simply about reminding yourself that it is not your job to fix things for other people. Your role is to be there as a support, and by all means, provide assistance if they ask for it, provide advice or opinions if they ask for it, but let the person make the decisions that are right for them because they know their life better than you do. Examples of some of the episodes that I've had before that you may also find helpful is episode 79, Supporting Others, and episode 53, Boundaries. And in fact, I talk about that boundaries one a lot. I also covered setting healthy boundaries with family in this video. So check those out for even more on the topic. My next question is how to stay mentally well when looking after someone with mental health issues at the same time you are going through your own challenges. And probably no surprises here because the first thing I'm going to say is boundaries, which I just talked about in the last point as well. Look, here's the thing. You absolutely can support other people. And a lot of these questions are about support, actually, now I think about it. The thing is, though, and this is going to sound like a cliche and I don't care, I'm going to say it anyway, just like when you're on the plane, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help other people. And you do that by practicing self-care, by prioritizing your own health and well-being and doing the things that you need to do to take care of yourself at a base level before you can even begin to hope to give extra to other people. So really make sure that you lean into taking care of yourself. And then the other point I would make here as well is that regardless of what the situation is for you and for them, lots and lots of open communication, especially about your emotional capacity for things. So if you are dealing with your own challenges, it's really important to have conversations up front, or at least on an ongoing basis, to let them know what you're capable of dealing of, or perhaps when you're going through a bit of trouble on your own and you need to back off a little bit. So lots of communication and, more importantly, lots of self-care. Next, how do you help others without compromising yourself? You have to prioritize your self-care and well-being. I know I say it a 50 million times, but it's one of the basics of good mental health. Oh yeah, I covered that too, episode 101. And the reality of life is that you cannot fill from an empty cup. So by making your self-care and well-being a priority on a day-to-day basis, not just every now and then when you think about it, that is actually going to help you to help other people without compromising your own base needs. Next, how to let go of the need to help others. Look, wanting to help other people is not a bad thing. It's a sign that you're caring. But again, if it gets in the way of self-care, or it becomes a case of trying to fix problems for other people, then that's a problem. So again, you cannot fix other people. And more importantly than that, you can only control what you do and say. And by all means, share your support and try to influence people in a positive way, but that's where it stops. All you have direct control over is yourself and what you choose to do and say. So actively reminding yourself of that fact is going to make life a lot easier for you and just really help you to remember that, yeah, you can actually help other people, but there is a line and there is only so far that you can actually help people. So next, I'd like some help with validating other people's emotions. I tend to go into problem-solving mode and I miss the root message. Wow, lots of caring people. So it's wonderful to hear so many people asking me questions about supporting other people, and there are different ones coming. Actually, these are going to be cliches, and I'm going to use them anyway. There's an old saying, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. So in other words, you have double the number of listening devices as you do speaking. So you should be listening twice as much as what you are speaking. The thing is that most people just want to be heard. The thing is that what works for you may not work for other people. And that's where you have to be really careful about making recommendations, about putting your needs onto people. So I think that the simplest way to approach this is simply to say, would you like to talk about ideas, or would you prefer me to just listen? And let the person make the choice of what they need. Next, what's the best way to cope with perfectionism without feeling out of control? Oh, I know this one all too well. I have struggled with perfectionism for a lot of my life, and it's funny that you mentioned control, because that's what perfectionism is. It is an attempt to regain control, or to cling on to greater control. Problem is, you can only control yourself and your own words and actions. And the reality is that perfect just does not exist. So you're setting yourself up for failure. Tackle perfectionism head on, because if you let it eat away at you, it will cause damage. So I talked about that in episode 98, and I went into quite a lot of detail about how to manage perfectionism. Okay, so next, I get motivated for a week and then find myself demotivated the next, even when I'm doing what I like. I just can't focus. All right, 3 words, mix it up. Motivation is a real pain, because even if we know that something is good for us, for some reason we fight against it. So do different things every single day. And again, like I said earlier, make self-care and rest an absolute priority. And I'll link again the episodes that I have covered self-care and rest. So it's really about saying that the more you do and the more variety that you put in, the higher the chance of you actually being motivated. And the other bit is you need to do this stuff on a daily basis. It can't be just a once a week or a once a month. It has to become a daily habit. And just like you would hopefully look after your physical health each day, you need to proactively look after your mental and emotional health on a daily basis. So I hope that these questions were helpful. These answers to these questions were helpful. Still lots more to come. So if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to my channel, turn notifications on so you never miss a video, and catch me again next week when I'll be sharing part 2 of your questions from Instagram. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a question mark emoji, because, well, I mean, that was kind of the whole point of this entire episode. Questions. Become a supporter at patreon.com/Jeremy Godwin, and you'll find the link in the description below. Click here to subscribe to my channel and watch this video next for more advice on better mental health. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take care and talk to you next time.